This is The Talk Tonight on CBS 5. Up first tonight, we'll take you live to Dr. Weeks School on Syracuse's northeast side-ish, just down off Oak Street. It is gleaming, brand new. They gutted the place to the tune of $29 million. And Syracuse Mayor Stephanie Miner is using that building to showcase her State of the City message this evening. The folks gathered there. Matt Mulcahy is here. We're carrying it live at cnycentral.com. She'll begin talking at about 6:30. The State of the City message, always an upbeat, a rather upbeat sort of agenda-setting address. Yes?
Yeah. And when you're in the third year of your fourth year in office, or you're past the third year mark, I should say, it's time to tell people you've done a good job, too.
To take some credit.
And take some credit that she's got things going in the right direction. The budget is better than it would have been maybe under some other guidance, that she has, as she says, cranes in the air doing development projects. She's moved things along that were stalled. I think maybe that's the biggest item that she can hang her hat on right now, is that things just weren't getting done until she became mayor, and it's always hard to say if it's exactly because she's mayor or not, but
it's never too early to take credit for things that that are generally seen by the populace of the city as being productive.
And no better way to create a checklist of things you've accomplished than to start with 3 or 4 that you know are going to get done regardless of what you do. So that's a good start.
There are a couple of things tonight that I'm looking at that could put the mayor a little bit off message. She's going to give the address. It will be well received in the room to the folks who work for her, we would imagine. The issue of this little tiff she has going on with the governor, and also much more locally, because that's sort of being covered much more by state media. This issue of the firefighters who put out a call earlier this week for their union members to show up and fight back against this plan to close one of the smaller firehouses in the city.
Yeah, you know, when we talked to her about that a couple of weeks ago, she seemed to think that the stories were a bit premature. It didn't sound like she was set on closing that firehouse, or that she wanted to convince the Common Council that had to be done. Although I guess a little bit of pressure from the firefighter union isn't a bad thing if you want to keep it open. But she didn't sound like she was set on that just yet. So I guess we'll see which way that goes.
Interesting. We'll pull up just some of the highlights that I pulled out of this earlier. A pawn shop crackdown. She's going to take credit for this, saying that a lot of the pawn shops in the city who weren't doing business the way the city wanted have now moved just outside the city limits. So she is going to talk about that and also try and help the county on that a little bit. She says we have an $8 million surplus, and this I found interesting. I don't know how much traction this will gain as far as wide appeal, but the city emails are changing. So if you want to email the mayor, it used to be this long syr.ny.us.gov. Now it's everybody at City Hall at syrgov.net. So some interesting.
Let me borrow that, and I'll just let me just test that.
Feel free. The Talk Tonight continues. We are not taking a commercial break right now. Instead, we are switching topics, though, but we are still staying in the city of Syracuse because this story has outraged so many people. Last night's shooting of Tom Dotterer, the sort of beloved baseball coach at CBA, and sort of a legend in local baseball history in his own right.
Yes, he's a professional player going back about 60 years, almost 55 years ago, played in the Cincinnati Reds organization, and then in the last 30 years he's been a coach at CBA, and all that time he's also been a liquor store owner, keeping the store running that his father opened a couple of generations ago on the north side of Syracuse. And boy, there's been a lot of change in that neighborhood over the last 50 to 60 years, that's for sure.
I know when you look for perspective on this, you called your dad.
I did,
I walked into the newsroom and you were on the phone with your dad today. His memories of the store and his...
Well, he recalls Mr. Dotterer running that store and going to high school with Tom Dotterer, who was a couple years younger, but his older brother, who was also a Major League Baseball player. So he remembered the family and thought pretty highly of them.
What do you think this says about... We always jump to, what does this mean for crime in the city of Syracuse? I personally don't know that it means anything trend-wise for crime in the city of Syracuse, but the stories like this, a guy doing his thing in his own store, and somebody comes in and shoots him in the face, it has just such, it tears at something in people.
Yeah, but we do have historical evidence that there's certain jobs that are inherently dangerous.
This is one
Not
of
just
them.
in Syracuse, but all across the country. Being a convenience store operator, being a liquor store owner, you're there later at night, although this wasn't that late at night, 7:30 at night, you may be by yourself. Somehow those types of operations are targeted by people looking for a quick dollar, and many times somebody who's already abusing some kind of substance. So I guess we'll have to see more of the facts, and it sounds like the police are making some progress on this investigation of finding out who it was.
For them to come out earlier today and tell us that they almost, I mean, reading between the lines, we're close on this. We have some very, very, very good leads. Does lead me to believe that we could, even later this evening, see some sort of closure on this, at least from an arrest perspective. Thank you, Matt. Let's hope for that. This is The Talk Tonight on CBS 5, and we'll be right back.